Sure. So my name is Shanai Matteson, and I am currently living in north of Palisade, Minnesota, which is the small town where I was raised and grew up. And I moved back here last summer, in part because of COVID. So with COVID, the economy for artists and organizers in Minneapolis kind of fell, the bottom fell out, and a lot of us lost our paying work. And so as a low income person, a single mom, I just couldn't afford to stay in Minneapolis. I needed to be closer to my family. But I also understood what was happening with the Line 3 oil pipeline being routed through the town, or very close to the town where I grew up. And I'll tell you a little bit about how close to some places that are really
Mm,
important to me. And so I moved up here in part also to be working as an artist and an organizer in collaboration with others who are working on the to stop Line 3. And my family's been here in this region, in this place actually, very close to the pipeline, for 5 generations. So we're settlers. We came here in part to work. The men in my family have always worked in extraction,
mm,
so lumber, mining, and now a number of them are being called to work on the soil pipeline. Um, and the women in my family have been um, caretakers and caregivers, and have worked in healthcare and education, and also as artists and people who use their hands to create. And so those are the histories that kind of ground me in this place, and figure into some of the work I do, which, as an artist, the things that I am working around are these narratives of place, our relationships to place as settler people, but um, also our relationship to extraction, and how we can, do the work of repair and reparation, both by truth telling about our histories, but then also by joining and supporting indigenous movements and cultural resurgence and language revitalization. So those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about. And more specifically, I'm sitting in the woods here, next to the house where I'm staying, and which is on a piece of land owned by the Aking Company, which is a native land trust. I think they're technically an LLC, but they've purchased this parcel of land. It's 80 acres, and also some other spots as well. And this parcel of land happens to be directly adjacent to the Line 3 route for the Line 3 tar sands oil pipeline, and where specifically one of two places where it is attempting to cross the Mississippi River. And so a lot of the work that I've done over the past years is around water and climate, and some of those issues I spoke about with extraction and place. And so it's a really fertile place to be working as an artist and an activist right now, but also it's very heartbreaking. And we can walk,
yeah,
and I can show you how close we are to the pipeline.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and so we have some space here that we are organizing together. It's not really a camp in the traditional sense of, how people imagine a protest camp. Winona LaDuke, who is one of the people who is on the board of the land company that owns the spot, and then also is organizing and praying here on a regular basis, and we're working together, has talked about this as kind of a welcome center.
mm,
That this is a place where we're welcoming water protectors and allies to come. We can help orient people. We can give them food, warm spaces to be. We can show them the river and invite them to pray at the river, or to be witness to this moment in time. And then we can, with what we know about this project and this place and some of the other communities that are impacted by this Line 3 pipeline, we can help to orient people to ways that they can get involved that are appropriate to where they're at, what their skills are, what their capacity is, and their calling. And
right,
so I'm doing a lot of that work with artists. There are other organizers working with direct action, working with policy, working with prayer.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's great that all of those skills are coming together at that
oh,
place, and the idea of the welcome center. Um, it There's also an invitation for people to come now,
yes, yes.
be present, right?
Yeah, so there was a call put out by Winona and other Anishinaabe women to come and pray by the water. There's a ceremonial lodge that was created
Mm,
um, down by the water, and it happens that that lodge is directly in the pathway of the pipeline. And so now the Army Corps of Engineers has issued a stop on construction just in that spot because it's considered an unanticipated discovery, and they have to go through some protocols around culture um, and work with the White Earth Tribal Cultural Preservation Office to determine how to respond to this unanticipated discovery, is what they call it. Um, and so that's also been interesting as an artist and a person who thinks and works in culture, how a cultural space, a prayer space like a lodge, they're trying to say, well, this lodge isn't historic, it hasn't been here very long, so therefore it's just a stall tactic, and we don't have to respect it. And Enbridge put a stake in the center of the lodge, just like stabbed it into the ground. But Winona and others, and I posted some videos of, I think, of her talking about this, is that culture is not a historic thing, right? It's a living, breathing part of life.
yeah.
And Anishinaabe culture is very much tied to this place and this land and this water. And so it's just ridiculous for them to be able to say what culture is, and therefore they can trample onto it in these ways. So it's an interesting, there's some really interesting things happening with illuminating the different ways we even think about culture.
Yeah, thank you for that reporting
Yeah.
from the structure. I found Winona's point about what is culture and what should be preserved to be really a profound um, statement of protest against the whole idea of
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
historic preservation um, is somehow more valid than preserving and maintaining culture as it's practiced right now.
Yeah. And protecting the people who are culture, right?
Mm,
Uh, Seems like when she and others, and it was Winona and Tanya Aubid and Don Goodwin and others last week, they sat in that lodge as the machines were coming closer and closer. And there's some footage and some photographs of how, Dawn, she was so overcome by the violence that this represents, that basically these machines are coming to destroy this lodge, but also to destroy people, to destroy water, to destroy these connections, and to erase them again. You know, um, it feels to me like a really profound moment here in this small little corner here. And they were able to stop the machines at that point, and they walked the machines back, like physically walked with. It's like the machine was retreating. It was this amazing moment, and now it's stopped there for it. We don't know how long, but yeah, just the disregard for Anishinaabe people, and how that this is not the idea that culture is a historic thing to be preserved really places people in the past too, and
mm.
their claim to the land, and to practicing their ways.
Well, thank you for being there. It's really, I think, uh, critical for all of us to somehow witness this, and um, it feels really heartbreaking and tragic, and the trauma of this kind of cut through the landscape is really evident. But then it's also, of course, there's the the strength of the conviction of the water protectors is really inspiring. Uh,
Yeah, it is. And I feel very, very fortunate to be part of this at this point in time. I feel like my emotions are up and down because, of course, I'm grieving a lot.
yeah.
I've been watching this project unfold over the past 7 years, and I had dreams and visions for a long time about this moment. that this would come to pass, and we would all have to be here
Right.
together in under such circumstances. And now that it's happening, I wake up in the morning and we're so close. I mean, at some point I'll walk, we can turn this around and I'll show you, but we're so close that we hear the trucks and the machines when they start up in the morning from bed, where we're sleeping. And so it's like this constant hum now of machinery, just like chewing up this forest, and then the trucks circling. And because this is such a contested pipeline, there's also a lot of security. I mean, there's a lot of police and a lot of private security just all around.
Mm.
And they've been surveilling a lot of the water protectors and allies for a while now, but now we're under really heavy surveillance. Like last night, some of us wanted to go see the northern lights because there was a solar storm, and we're pretty far north, so we can see that. And we came out onto the road, which was where there's a clearing, where you can see past the tree line. And the security service, Securitas, the private security company, they had been parked on the road, flooding the lights at our spot. So basically flooding out any possibility that we could see the stars, in an effort to monitor the coming and going from our where we're staying here. And it just seemed to me like that was another one of these moments where I was like, look at this. Like, you are so concerned about protecting this property and protecting these machines and protecting this process, that you're not even looking up. Like,
Right.
you're not even understanding the beauty and the profound things that are happening around you. Anyway, um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I could show you. We could take a little walk if you want to see where we are, or if you have other things you want to talk about while I'm in this quiet place,
Let's take a walk. No,
quietish
that
place.
sounds great. Um, yeah, I'd love to see the landscape,
Yeah,
and just understand your proximity,
yeah.
to all this.
So yeah, so I'm not gonna show you the spot where we're staying because we're doing kind of no photos on the,
Sure.
or trying to, for as long as you can. But here goes another truck. So I'm leaving the welcome center here. And we're about 15 miles from Palisade, which is a town of about 167 people. And that's where I grew up. So we're north of Palisade on what's called the Great River Road,
Yeah.
which is the road that follows the Mississippi all the way from the headwaters to the Gulf. And so this is the Great River Road. And just a few weeks ago, you could go 40 minutes without a car passing. I mean, we're in a very remote part of Minnesota as far as like traffic and things like that. And so this is the road, and then right there you can see is where they're working on the pipeline. So, and then the river is here, and
Right.
so that's the Mississippi, and then up here is where the pipeline, where they're constructing they're actually, I believe, going to try to drill beneath the river road and under the river and come up on the other side. And just for a little bit of background, they just received their final permits last Monday, but they've been preparing for a while. And so we had seen matting, which are these big timbers that they have to lay in order for the machines to get into these wetlands. We've seen timber stockpiling, we've seen pipe, we've seen machinery, and then men. And I've seen one person who appears to be a female person working on these crews of all the hundreds I've seen. So mostly men from out of state.
Right.
And
And
now
that's what
the
is
police,
known as
there's,
man camps, this kind of uh, sudden influx of out of state
yeah. And
working on the pipeline.
yeah. And during a COVID, I mean, Aiken County is very rural. I think there's about 16,000 people in the entire county. There's 100 in this town, 160, and they're sending 800 workers just to this county, and 4,000 plus 4 to 6,000 workers across the region. And these are all very remote rural places where COVID has been hitting really hard because a lot of people don't respect the masking orders. It's an elderly population, it's a vulnerable population, and so the hospitals here have been overwhelmed, and some of the nurses locally actually organized to try to get the governor to stop construction until the COVID surge is over. But the governor said he won't do that. So here we are. And this is just like trucks like this all day, you know, they're moving the supplies that they need. Those are matting trucks. So those are trucks that they fill up with those big timbers and then lay them onto the wetland, kind of like a track, and then the machines can roll over.
And can you explain, I've just visited that area just a little bit, but one of the things that really struck me was that the boundary between earth and water is really fluid.
Yeah.
Everything there seems to be water.
Yeah.
The water's
Yeah.
like,
We can see if we can see it on the tree line. So this is a forest, very much rainforest, right? So the water in the spring, it doesn't flood here like over the roadway, but you know, the water table is very high. So you see lots of mosses and mushrooms and things that thrive in a wet landscape. And it's a very diverse, biologically diverse landscape and ecosystem here. It's been, you know, the story of this part of the county is that when it was settled, they attempted to drain a lot of this water off so that it could be farmland. But it proved to be very difficult to do that. And a lot of people lost their farms and moved away. And it sort of got that feeling of a place that was attempted, where they attempted to do a lot of development and then it failed. So rural poverty has been part of this county for a long time, since settlers were here. But it's an abundant landscape, and it's for Anishinaabe people, it's a very abundant and thriving landscape, you know.
are you on the or near the White Earth Reservation?
We're east of there a bit. We're close to the East Lake, which is part of the Mille Lacs Reservation, and then we're not too far from Fond du Lac or Leech Lake. We're kind of there's a great map on the Stop Line 3 website that shows these areas. So I'm just going to give you a view of where we are. So this is our sheriff's office here. They've been out here. And then over here is this is a power line corridor. That the pipeline, at least for this part, is kind of on the north side of this power line corridor. And you can see, and we'll go over there and say hello, but Tanya Aubid is here kind of keeping a fire. She's been vocally questioning the workers and others who are here about whether they have ultimately have the permission to be here. And she was part of praying in that lodge that I mentioned. So we'll go talk to her if you want. And then this area, the pipeline kind of route crosses here and then goes back into this area near the Willow River. And so the Willow is a tributary, and it's very windy and it's very wet. Like you said, it's like there are rivers, but it's really, these are like river bottom lands, and this is all wetland. And they just are tearing through. So in a week they've cut, we'll get over here. We'll see if I get yelled at. And that Willow River is really important to me. That area right where they're staging right now to drill at the Willow River is where my grandmother was born and where my family was living for a few generations. And so my grandma, who's still alive, I took her over there recently and we took a look at it, and it was really a sad time for her to realize that this is happening. So this is where they've cut through, and you can see, I don't know how well you can see it, but up above where those excavators are moving, or maybe they're not excavators, where those machines are moving the trees around, you see like a green tarp up in the tree. There are two young people who've been in that tree since last Friday.
Wow.
In two separate trees, sitting in a blockade. That is the drill pad. So that is the area where they will need to stage the drills. is what we understand. And so they've put themselves there in an effort to keep those trees from being cut down and to keep that drill pad from being developed. But the workers have been continuing around them in a pretty aggressive fashion. Yesterday, I guess there was a there was a worker, not a gentleman, cutting cutting trees down like all around them. So basically like felling these huge trees right next to where these young people are sitting.
I saw
Uh,
a video that you posted where there were literally trees falling right
yeah,
around the tree sit, and
yeah,
it must be just really frightening.
yeah. They're very brave, I think, to be up there. And it's cold, it's been
Yeah,
cold. They're very well prepared though. I mean,
yeah.
they know what they're doing. But so this area that was public land, but now Enbridge has taken it over, and the Department of Natural Resources has declared this area between the pipeline route and the Aking land as an exclusion zone. And Winona asked, "Who's excluded? What's excluded?" And they said, "Normal people." And she said, "Really? What's the definition of normal people?" And they said, "Workers only." And so this exclusion zone is needs to be crossed in order to resupply the tree sitters with food and water. And so there's been a bit of it's been things have been playing out. You can kind of see, it might be hard to see, but down there is a group of people who arrived last night and today to support the tree sitters, and they have a little area there that they're staging.
But there are all these kind of attempts to make protest against this pipeline essentially illegal, right? That
Oh, yeah, they've been trying to pass some laws at the state level, probably at the federal level as well. Yeah, to make supporting and protesting and also supporting illegal. So like bringing food, bringing water, providing shelter,
and
which
then
really just yeah.
yeah, go on.
Well, I was just thinking about these parallel universes that we're in right now. So this one of like such brave care, like people putting their bodies on the line to protect a stand of trees, or people putting themselves on the line to bring food and water to young people who are protesting, versus our sheriff's office here, which is put all of its resources now into patrolling and protecting the machinery that's destroying this forest. And so it's like, this is really brings into, I think, stark relief these universes of extraction, and um, this story that we are very separate from this land and this water, and that we can take, and then this other story of care and relationship, and the fact that we are all related. This water connects all of us, and then that's a very indigenous Anishinaabe way of thinking. I can't speak for that, but this is how I've come to understand it.
Mm.
And Winona has been talking about this idea that the pandemic and the pipeline are like a portal where we can choose to
Mm.
walk through into a different imagination about it. And I feel that that's very active right now. That's this area in particular, right here and down to the Mississippi, we're in a portal, and it feels like lots of things are happening in this kind of time bending way.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you want to meet these folks?
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Hey y'all. Good morning. Hey, good morning. I'm on a video with an artist who says hello, and was
Hi.
wondering if we could meet you, especially you, Tanya, because you've been here, and if you'd say anything about who you are and why you're here and what's been going on.
Hi, I'm Tanya. Good morning.
Hi, Tanya. It's an honor to meet you. My name's
Nice
Oscar.
to meet you. Kind of.
The phone is turned around, so she can't actually see you, but
Yeah, sure.
I've been sitting out here for 5 days now, but I've been over at my yurt for about a couple weeks now. So I'm here because these guys are trespassing on 1855 treaty areas. They don't have the Ojibwe Warrior Society permit, and these guys the law enforcement and DNR are just basically letting them go through because of state laws. And then I found out this morning that if I continue on with my talking and stuff, the energy that I'm putting out there, the corporation wants to put a harassment protection order on these guys because I said I was going to zip tie these guys, take them to the 54 treaty area and drop them off over there. So, that's how it goes. And they don't want to recognize our treaties that supersede any of their laws. So that's why I'm out here.
Do you have any questions for Tanya while we're here? Or anything else you want to say?
Yeah, tell me about the river there and the water and what the pipeline is threatening to do at that place.
It's okay. Over at the Cromwell pipe yard, they've had pipes sitting out there for the past 4 or 5 years, 4 years, and they had pipes out there before that were sitting out there for about 4 years, about the same amount of time. Since they were out in the elements, they took that batch of pipes out, and sold them to a Texas corporation. So I noticed those pipes broke. And with these pipes, with as long as they've been out there sitting out in the elements, those pipes are going to break also. And with the tar sands oil that's coming through those pipelines, eventually it's going to split open. I've seen the seams, there's straight seams, and then there's those spiral seams.
Right.
And with the spiral seams, if you ever see those Pillsbury cans when you're knocking on a thing like that and it goes whoosh. Well, that's what the oil is going to do. Wow. And when it leaches into the water systems here, the water, top groundwater, and the aquifers and that, you're going to have those oil globules that is going to be in there, putting poison in there.
Wow. And these folks will be watching this who are in different places around the country. And can you give a sense for what the landscape is like here and how you see it?
All right, let's see. If we take a look down that way, about 2.5 football fields, there's the Mississippi River. We have a lot of birch trees, pine trees of all varieties, cedar trees. And basically what this company did was tear it all down. They made animals homeless, food that we eat. And when that pipeline breaks, it's going to leach into the water systems, which grows our wild rice. And that's the food that grows on the water. And we as Anishinaabe people, we've retained that right to keep harvesting that, to keep harvesting the plants, the medicines, and utilizing the trees as our home. Back over towards the Mississippi River, there's a wigwam back there that we use for ceremonial purposes, and Enbridge desecrated that already. They drove a stake right in the heart of that thing. So to me, they're law enforcement, DNR, they don't care. They don't care what's going on because they claim that Enbridge already has all their permits. They do not have all their permits. To me, they're working in doing unsafe safety practices, and they are totally disregarding the treaties. And this goes to the Queen of England too, since your ass is on the line.
It seems that they're using security as an excuse to intimidate.
Yes, they are.
Indigenous people and to force through something that hasn't really proven to be useful.
Right. It's non-essential from my point of view. And then I got word too is that their own construction people are kicking out their windows and stuff like that and framing the water protectors as the ones who are being the troublemakers. We are not. They are the troublemakers. They are the ones who are coming into these lands and desecrating and being the domestic terrorists.
Thank you for being there.
You bet.
What would you say to people who want to support this resistance to the line 3 and the pipeline there?
If you're so willing to come out and to be able to put your body on the line and do your prayer work in that essence, like the tree sitters, we got to pray for them because they've been up there for quite a while now. And also, like, if you aren't able to do that, we could always use more firewood. We could also use more tents that are winter related. pop-up fish houses even maybe. So you know, any of that type of thing would be useful. Also warm boots, 0 degree sleeping bags. Right now they're only the ones that we got are like at 30-40 degrees, and it's getting colder.
Yeah.
We're gonna be here for the duration.
Yeah, and I can share a couple more thoughts before we go today, you know, that I've gathered up from folks like Tanya about what might be helpful. So this fire is really nice. Was it still going when you got here this morning?
There was still coals underneath.
Whoops, I'm gonna try to make it back up this hill here. Whoops. All right, and then some folks have been coming to visit, to stand here, to be part of this from other places. And, yeah. I'll turn this around so we can talk to each other. Yeah, so I don't know if there's other things I can tell you, or if you have other questions for Tanya, or
Well, I think maybe
over here.
Oh, that's what he looks like. Hello.
Hi.
And
Hi,
nice
to meet you.
Nona and Tara and some other folks, and does a lot of work around water and that sort of thing. So
okay, cool. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. It's I wish I was able to be there right now. It's really important work that you're doing, and I really hope I can support in some way. It's
Word warrior that you are, and let the people know. For real.
Yeah.
We need people like you out there to do that, to get the word out like that.
Yeah, the storytelling piece is really important because, like Tanya said, there's these efforts to really malign protesters as terrorists, essentially. And that's both in the media and in the eyes of locals. You know, I know people who live around here, and I've been getting messages and calls asking, you know, what's going on, who's there, why are they there? And there's a real lack of understanding and ignorance on the part of a lot of people about treaties and about Anishinaabeg people, and about why any of us are resisting this pipeline. And so telling the stories about what's calling people to this resistance work is really, really important, because we're countering a really well-funded propaganda campaign by Enbridge. And they've basically purchased our local law enforcement. I mean, our sheriff was taking reporters around and showing them things yesterday, and I wonder about why is the county sheriff, who's on speed dial with the workers, every time they see a person that they think might be a protester, they take our pictures and they send them to the sheriff, is the same person who's taking the media around and showing them what they should see. It's very, very disturbing to me. And so, yeah, having independent media, having people tell these stories and listen directly to the people here is really, really important.
Yep, exactly.
Well, it's also one of the things that I've always been so impressed with Honor the Earth and Winona LaDuke is the how art is really an integral part of what that organization does, and how the message can be communicated like really broadly. And so I wonder, you know, for you as an artist, I mean, often we say like, oh, what can art do, right? Like art is useless. But it seems that this is a time and a place where actually the work of artists becomes really important. Do you feel that?
Do you have any thoughts on that? The work of art and culture. We made a newspaper. That was kind of a cool.
Tell me about the newspaper. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So one of the things we were talking about here is that, you know, the media doesn't cover the stories of water protectors in a way that I think does justice and honors the true commitments that people have. And then we have this spin campaign that Enbridge is funding, you know, these kind of stories about what's really happening here. Oh, are you going to go? Okay, go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then I might start walking back so I can maybe show you what this paper looks like, because I don't think there's any out here anymore. But then just thinking about how social media functions now, you know, like a lot of us exist in these bubbles where we see a lot of messages that are in agreement with the way we feel. And then those same stories get covered in a very different way, you know, depending on what your feed looks like.
Mm.
And local people here are, you know, they're seeing this pipeline come through. They've been told it's safe. They've been told it has all the permits. They haven't been told that there are legal cases pending. Bridges, the permits that they got from our Public Utilities Commission are being challenged in court, but those court cases aren't going to be heard until spring, and yet they're still building. And so there's a lot of misinformation on the kind of legal side of things as well. So we decided we would make our own newspaper. And so I started grabbing updates from social media posts, and also just being here on the ground. I can interview people, I can take photos, I can find out what's happening, and then put that into a weekly broadside. So it's a double-sided 11 by 17. We're printing it on the risograph, and basically we can create our own newspaper. And then what I do is I hand it out down here at the site. I've been dropping it in people's mailboxes around here. I've been distributing it in the towns nearby, and then also I have friends in Minneapolis and in Duluth who are going to print and distribute it. So it's a way for us to tell the stories, and you know, it provides a little bit of you know, it's fun to do that work, right? We're in
Right.
the middle of this horrible place where everybody's kind of emotions are on roller coaster, but you know, having these creative outlets where we can be playful, I guess. You know, it's like we have a newspaper with a circulation or a area of concern that is just as big as this, between these two rivers and this pipeline.
Yeah.
Anyway, I put a picture of it up on my Instagram, and I'm probably going to figure out today how to get a digital copy of it up so people who are far away can read it.
Great.
But that's just one example of an art project. So we're also planning our own radio station, and we're hoping we can be able to broadcast just in this worker area, music, but also interviews and stories with water protectors and allies. And then we set up a space inside the spot where I'm staying. Has a garage that we're using as an art space, and we're going to be inviting artists from all around and from here to work together on projects. And so there's already a bunch of ideas circulating, and it's just organically emerging.
Yeah.
I guess one other example is last Sunday we had a group of kids who were out here, including my children, and they wanted to do something. They like to work on art projects because it gives them something they can, you know, they're so creative and they just really want to make things. And so we made our own stakes, the kind of flagging stakes that, you know, that you see all over with the pipeline. They're like wooden stakes with like pink and orange flags on them. And we made our own, and we wrote the things on them that we wanted to be marking and making visible. And then we taught the kids how to use a bullhorn so that they could raise their voices. And then we marched down to where the tree sitters are, and we gave the kids the bullhorn, and they got a chance to talk to the tree sitters and tell them thank you and tell them the things that matter to them. And then they put their stakes down in that spot. So there's a little colorful area now where the stakes are with all the kids writing. So like we're doing things like that all the time. And you know, I actually think it's an important part of the community space that we're making over here at the Welcome Center, to just always have those kinds of projects available. Like people could take a break from the work that they're doing or the emotional weight of it all and go make something, you know, and put it out into the world. So that's kind of what I'm hoping we can do with the print projects and with the and with some more sculptural things we're doing. And then the radio station is that we create this really we create an art space that is integrated with the action and the resistance and the prayer, and all those things are there, and people will know what to do.
I love that it's also all ages, that
Yeah.
it's your children, and you've mentioned your grandmother, that this is like something that everyone is welcome to be involved in and learn from. And
Yeah. And we're going to be doing something on the solstice. There's a group of artists, and activists who are going to be coming here from the Twin Cities and then from across the north who represent different generations of this work. And this is something Winona had been talking about, which is, you know, we have a long history here in Minnesota of resisting these kinds of projects and winning. You know, we feel really defeated right now, or we may feel like this is like not possible because we're looking at these machines just cutting through at such a pace. But this is, we've been here before.
Right.
With the odds, and so remembering those activist histories and the people who are teaching across generations and encouraging each other is really, really important. So we're going to gather some of those folks together and do an art project together on the solstice, and then be able to share that out to the world. So that's just another example. I think that intergenerational work is really, really important. And I want to be in a space where my kids are able to be.
Yeah.
You know, it was really sad the other day as I started to think about how it just feels like this destruction is closing in, you know, and the police are all around, and it doesn't feel welcoming
Yeah.
of people at all.
Right.
Or
It's
children.
the security environment. And I think there's an attempt to make it very frightening for everyone
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
there.
And that's keeping people from coming. But
Mm,
it also, you know, at some point, I have people calling me from around here, my family, asking if I'm safe and starting to question
mm,
me. Like,
mm.
why would I put myself and my children here? Why would I, if I am able to leave, why would I stay here? Like, that makes me a bad mother. I even had a cop say to me, like, if I was a mom, I wouldn't have my kids down here. And I'm like, you're putting that on me, but I didn't make this mess.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't have your kids here, but you'd have a pipeline.
This is
Like,
your home. This is literally,
yeah,
it's going
like
through
I
your
live here.
backyard. Crazy.
Yeah, and so I think that, you know, working with the kids to create and to tell stories and to celebrate and to be connected to the land and water is really vital, because we can't lose that. We need it to be that kind of space. We need to hold on to a little bit of that, and then that needs to grow, because that's what will be, that's what we need instead of, you know, that. Oh,
Right.
wait, I turned this way. Instead of that, right?
Right. That ultimately this is all acting out of love for this place that is so special, and um, that is where all the water comes from, in a sense.
Yeah, and
The
maybe
headwaters
I'll
of the Mississippi.
maybe last thing we can do here before I head inside is I can show you the river.
Yeah. Wow.
Because it is also something that I think even people who live in the Twin Cities don't understand. The Mississippi is very different at different points, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even in Minnesota. So you're up here, the river just has a completely different character.
Mm.
And it's so, there's so much life here, and it's so vulnerable in a sense, because the water, like you said, the water isn't, it's not like it's been put into a concrete channel like it has in some other places where there isn't a lot of permeability. Here it's all, so we have a little path here. And this is where Winona has invited anyone, anywhere to come down here to pray. There's a path that winds down here, and this is low land. This area does flood in the springtime. So if we're all still here resisting this pipeline in the springtime, we're gonna need waders and boats. But right now, this is the forest here. You can see the mosses on the trees, maybe. Shows you where the water line is.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And I was here last summer. I moved here in the summertime, and there were so many mushrooms and just plants and medicines, and it's really incredible. But this path comes down here. Yeah, see I think you can see those.
Yeah.
like the different mosses on the trees.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And there were some people who were saying the other day that they could bring some boats down to set up some boats right next to that lodge. But I think the river's already iced. I already feel so much better when I'm down here. I need to remember that this is just what I need to do when I'm feeling that feeling of overwhelmed. You know, it's such a healing spot.
I can feel that even through the phone, that it's really.
So, yeah, there's ice now.
Wow.
It will freeze solid and we'll be able to walk across.
Right.
But right now, it looks so still.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the Mississippi. And just up there around the bend is where they're working.
It's inconceivable that you would try and put oil underneath the river.
Yeah. And this is some of the last remaining kind of wild and scenic and, undeveloped land in Minnesota. We have a lot of clean water here, whereas other parts of Minnesota, agriculture or mining or other things have really, really impaired the water. And that matters for the monomen, for the wild rice that Tanya mentioned, but also all of our health. And this is the drinking water source for lots of people downstream too. So, yeah.
Wow.
So I should probably run.
Thank you. That was incredible.
Yeah.
That was really amazing to be able to visit this place with you right now. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll keep I'm going to keep documenting, in my own way. There are lots of indigenous leaders you can follow who are on the front line. GNU Collective is doing a lot of direct action. Honor the Earth is posting about a number of different things going on, and then there are individuals who you can find with the Stop Line 3 hashtag. My documentation is a little bit more straightforward. I'm just trying to show, what I'm seeing and infuse some of the personal into that too. I mean, everyone's doing that, but I'm going to try to keep doing that as much as I can, and then I'll share the art projects that we're making and things like that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your work, and thank you for being there and for sharing that with us.
Yeah, take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.